The Greatest Escape: How China Rewrote History in One Generation. The Impossible Number. 800 million people. Let that sink in for a moment. That's more than double the entire population of the United States. More than the populations of Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Spain combined. That's how many human beings China lifted from extreme poverty in less than 50 years. A transformation so staggering that if it were fiction, editors would reject it as implausible. But here's what makes this story truly haunting. It almost never happened. The Graveyard of Dreams. December 1978. While Americans prepared for Christmas and Europeans bundled against winter, a group of elderly Chinese men gathered in Beijing for a meeting that would quietly reshape human civilization. But to understand why this moment mattered, we need to rewind 3 years earlier, to a China that had become a graveyard of its own dreams. When Mao Zedong died in 1976, he left behind a country that had cannibalized itself. The Cultural Revolution, that decade-long spasm of ideological madness from 1966 to 1976, had turned the world's most ancient continuous civilization into a basket case. Intellectuals had been sent to farms to learn from the peasants. Scientists were beaten by teenagers waving little red books. Teachers were forced to wear dunce caps and confess to imaginary crimes. The economy had been reduced to a centrally planned disaster, where 88% of the population, nearly 900 million human beings, survived on less than $1.90 a day. Imagine, in 1978, the average Chinese citizen earned about the same as the average person in impoverished Bangladesh. This was a nuclear power that couldn't feed its own people. A civilization that had invented paper, gunpowder, and the compass couldn't produce enough rice to prevent regular famines. The man who fell 3 times. Enter Deng Xiaoping, a diminutive man standing barely 5 feet tall who had already died 3 political deaths. Purged by Mao 3 separate times, exiled, humiliated, forced to work in a tractor factory, Deng had watched his own son thrown from a window during the Cultural Revolution, leaving him paralyzed for life. He had every reason to be cautious, every reason to play it safe. Instead, he gambled everything. Here's the hook that historians obsess over. Deng never held China's top official title. He was never president, never premier, never chairman. Yet from 1978 to 1992, this man who officially ranked 3rd or 4th in the government hierarchy rewrote the rules of the world's most populous nation. How? By understanding something that every revolutionary before him had missed. Sometimes the most radical act is pragmatism. "I don't care if a cat is black or white," Deng famously said, "so long as it catches mice." With that simple peasant wisdom, he declared war on communist orthodoxy itself, the secret experiment. But here's where the story gets truly fascinating. The transformation didn't begin with government decree. It began with a crime. In December 1978, the same month as that fateful Beijing meeting, 18 starving farmers in Xiaogang village did something that could have gotten them executed. Gathering in secret by candlelight, they signed a pact in blood. They would divide up the collective farm and work their own plots privately. If caught, the other farmers agreed to raise the children of any who were executed. Think about the desperation required to sign your own potential death warrant just for the right to work harder. Within a year, the village harvest had increased 5-fold. 5-fold. The secret leaked out. Instead of sending in the execution squads, Deng did something remarkable. He pointed to Xiaogang and said, "Do that everywhere." This pattern, experiment locally, then scale nationally, would become the template for China's entire transformation. And it violated every rule of how communist states were supposed to operate. The zones of heresy. While Ronald Reagan campaigned for the American presidency promising to defeat communism, Communist China created something that shouldn't have existed. Special economic zones where capitalism was not just permitted but encouraged. Shenzhen, a fishing village of 30,000 near Hong Kong, became the first laboratory. Western economists predicted disaster. Communist true believers screamed betrayal. Everyone agreed it was impossible to mix capitalism and communism. The ideologies were oil and water, fire and ice. But Deng understood something deeper. China had no choice. With 88% extreme poverty, ideological purity was a luxury they couldn't afford. Pragmatism wasn't a philosophy, it was survival. By 1990, Shenzhen's population had exploded to 1.5 million. By 2020, it topped 12 million, a megacity of glass towers and tech companies built from scratch in 4 decades. This single city's GDP now exceeds that of entire nations. The speed of transformation. Here's where the numbers become almost incomprehensible. From 1978 to 2025, China's economy grew by an average of roughly 9% per year for nearly 5 decades. To put that in perspective, the United States averaged about 2.5% during its best century of growth. What does 9% annual growth feel like on the ground? It means that every 8 years the economy doubles. A child born in 1978 would have lived through 3 complete doublings by age 24. By age 40, their country's economy would be 16 times larger than when they were born. This isn't normal economic growth. This is economic mutation. The human cost of this transformation shows up in the details. In 1978, fewer than 1% of Chinese owned refrigerators. By 2000, over 80% did. In 1978, life expectancy was 66 years. By 2025, it had climbed to 78, surpassing the United States. In 1978, China had barely any paved roads. By 2025, it had built the world's largest highway network and a high-speed rail system that makes Amtrak look like a museum piece. The ghost of Tiananmen. But this isn't a fairy tale, and heroes are rarely simple. In June 1989, as economic freedoms expanded, students gathered in Tiananmen Square to demand political freedoms. The government sent in tanks. The massacre that followed revealed the bargain at the heart of China's transformation. Economic liberty without political liberty, prosperity without democracy, wealth without freedom. This contradiction haunts every discussion of China's success. Can we celebrate lifting 800 million from poverty while acknowledging the authoritarian system that achieved it? The question makes Western observers deeply uncomfortable because it suggests that the relationship between freedom and prosperity might be more complicated than our ideologies prefer. The Dragon's Ascent. By 2010, China had surpassed Japan to become the world's second-largest economy, a position it hadn't held since roughly 1850, before the Opium Wars and the Century of Humiliation. The circle was closing. The civilization that had been the world's richest for most of recorded history was reclaiming its place. The numbers from this period defy comprehension. China consumed more cement between 2011 and 2013 than the United States had consumed in the entire 20th century. It built more high-speed rail in a decade than the rest of the world combined had built in 50 years. Cities the size of New York appeared seemingly overnight. 600 million people moved from rural areas to cities, the largest human migration in history, happening not across borders, but within one country. The verdict of history. So what are we to make of this impossible transformation? History has never witnessed anything comparable. The Industrial Revolution took Britain over a century. America's rise to dominance took nearly as long. Rome built its empire over 5 centuries. But China compressed a transformation that should have taken generations into a single lifetime. Today, China stands as the world's second-largest economy, nipping at America's heels for the top spot. It has lifted more people from poverty faster than any nation in human history, not just percentage-wise, but in absolute numbers that dwarf every other anti-poverty effort ever attempted. Those 800 million people represent more than 75% of all global poverty reduction in the past 40 years. Yet this achievement emerges from a paradox, an authoritarian state that embraced market economics, a communist party that became capitalism's most aggressive advocate, a dictatorship that delivered prosperity. It challenges our assumptions about what combinations are possible in human society. The China transformation isn't just the story of one nation's recovery from ideological madness. It's a mirror that reflects back uncomfortable questions about development, governance, and the price of progress. It reminds us that history doesn't follow the scripts we write for it, and that the future often arrives wearing a disguise we don't recognize. When those 18 farmers signed their pact in blood in 1978, they couldn't have imagined they were lighting a fuse that would trigger the largest economic explosion in human history. But they were desperate, and desperation makes radicals of us all. Sometimes, it turns out, the greatest revolutions begin not with ideology but with a simple, subversive idea. Let people work hard and keep what they earn. Everything else, the skyscrapers, the high-speed trains, the 800 million escapes from poverty, followed from that one dangerous notion. History will debate China's transformation for centuries. But one thing is certain: we've never seen anything like it before, and we may never see anything like it again.